Hi, everyone. Welcome to GoLocal Live at the Rhode Island State House. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us for the politics portion of Live this afternoon. There's a lot of politics on GoLocalProp.com right now pertaining to the statewide poll conducted by John Della Volpe. Be sure to check it out after you watch us here at the State House. I'd like to welcome Mike Stenhouse with the Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity, a familiar face, and an issue that we touched upon before here a little bit that you are delving deeper into. We had Representative Justin Price on. Pertaining to civil asset forfeiture. Now, his bill specifically was looking at fisheries. If fishermen had product seized, equipment seized, that they'd have some recourse to be able to maintain their livelihood. But you're really delving deep into this issue of civil asset forfeiture and the rights of citizens to maintain what's rightfully theirs, but then also what happens when it gets seized as well is a question that you're asking.
Yeah, so we're proposing to completely rewrite the asset forfeiture laws in our state. Right now, you've got a situation, it's a toxic situation where you have very high amount of regulations on businesses, not criminal activity, just regulations. And when some of those regulations are forfeited, in the case, for an example, of fishermen, they can have their private property seized even if they're not guilty, even if they're just suspected of some technical licensing or permit violation. And of the video we show, we encourage you to go to our website, rifreedom.org. Right at the top, you'll be outraged when you see what's happened to some of these fishermen. But this happens to private citizens and other businesses too. Listen, civil asset forfeiture is a valuable law enforcement tool when it's applied to criminals. But when innocent people who are merely suspected of a crime or there's some question of some kind of administrative regulatory violation have their assets seized, and then even further infuriating, if they're proven innocent and they can't get their assets back, how can that be fair in our society today?
And so as you're talking about this potential to rewrite or look at it from an entirely new perspective, you also want to track where these assets end up going, especially in the case of let's talk about a catch seizure. You got to do something with those fish. They need to be sold. But then what happens after that?
That's a good question. We're trying to find out. Right now, the Attorney General's office is not cooperating with us. We've put out requests for information. We do know that the DEM, with regard to the fishermen, the DEM capture the fish unjustly, of course. They have to sell it. You can't keep fish around for very long. I think we all know how that would turn out. And then the money goes somewhere, apparently into some account managed by the Attorney General's office, and we have no idea what happened to that money, how it's dispensed, what it's used for, because often, as we've said, it's not returned even when there's an innocent business person. So our bill would not only protect private property owners, lower the bar for when seizures can be made in the first place. I mean, heighten the bar there, lower the bar for when innocent people can get it back, but it also opens up government transparency so we find out exactly what's going on with this sometimes very unjust seizure.
And so, as you suggested, reworking it all together, what are you hearing from lawmakers and supporters of this? How would the process even begin to rethink of how this looks?
We've gotten broad support. We've got a lobbyist on it who reports broad support, but we do have opposition from the Attorney General's office, and we do have opposition from existing law enforcement. They're used to doing business that way. It's not that they want to unjustly seize property from everybody, but it's the way they've been doing business for decades. By the way, Rhode Island's laws are rated a D- nationally in this, so we're not just like making up a problem here. This is a real problem in our state right now. Law enforcement doesn't want to change. They have a lot of sway in the General Assembly. We don't know how the legislation is going to turn out this year, but they're the only opponents. This is one of those rare issues where the far left, the far right, and everybody in between agree, except for the established status quo. They're the only ones that want to protect the current way of doing business.
Well, as you said, you spoke with this fisherman, and we'll be able to provide that video as well after the fact. If you're curious as to one Rhode Islander story about going through, his story, what did you think when you heard it?
I was outraged. We talk about 3 examples where for some mere question about some kind of license or permit issue, that thousands and thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars of their catch is seized by the DEM, and they got to go through hell to get it back, or they never get it back when they really didn't make a violation in the first place. Certainly, they didn't do anything criminal. So to have Rhode Island's fishermen, any private citizen, any business treated like a criminal for some mere technical violation is just not acceptable.
Well, we're going to continue to follow this issue up here at the Rhode Island State House. We're in the waiting days here.
Yes, we're going to find out pretty soon.
Well, I appreciate because this is a big issue for the center that you've been on a campaign letting folks know about. We'll provide more links as well on GoLocal too. And Mike, I'm sure we'll be talking soon.
Yeah, one last note. This is part of the Justice Reinvestment Initiative. It's a whole package of bills that were passed last year. So we did pass bills last year. We're looking to do more. This is, again, something with bipartisan support. Thank you, Kate.
Mike Stenhouse, thank you for your time. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back here at the Rhode Island State House. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Go Local Live at the Rhode Island State House. I'm Go Local News Editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us for this news and politics portion up here. I'd like to welcome Alex Knonigan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate.
With transparent business, now this is a specific, you're looking at legislation that would improve transparency in government contracting and how hours are recorded, how hours are reported. And tell us a little bit about what you're looking to achieve.
Well, we're trying to save, in collaboration with our legislative sponsors, we're trying to save the state of Rhode Island tens of millions of dollars with zero cost to the state. And that, we believe, is doable because certain cases of even municipal overbilling sometimes amounts to hundreds of millions of dollars of overbilled money. My favorite case study is from New York City, where one company managed to overbill the city over $500 million on just one municipal contract.
That's one municipal contract. Now, this is done through technology, would it not?
That's correct, yes.
So how would that look? Just enable these municipalities, cities to be able to provide verified information to then submit. Would it require a lot of sort of legwork on the parts of cities and towns to be able to do this, or would it be fairly simple?
There is no requirement on the part of the state or municipalities to do anything. It's just a requirement on contractors who bill for their professional time to provide transparent verification of billable hours. In other words, it's as simple as saying, you want to bill us for your time? Verify that time was actually worked. Overbilling scandals flare up with regularity and amount to astronomical amounts, but overbilling is not the only benefit. Another, possibly even larger benefit, is protection from time wasters, because so many people who wouldn't even think about overbilling the state spend a third of business day doing online shopping, computer games, watching funny videos on YouTube, sending out resumes, writing personal memoirs, moonlighting on their own projects or projects of other companies, and all that other non-work related activity. Now, our particular solution doesn't restrict them from doing so. The only restriction it puts in place is precluding them to bill the state for that time.
Okay, so they've actually got to be doing the work to be able to bill for the work.
Absolutely.
So as you talk with legislators and you talk with good government folks about this, are you hearing any opposition?
We presented it to decision makers in almost 25 states, almost half of these states. I don't believe we've ever heard a no. I don't think this problem didn't resonate even in a single state. In fact, in 9 states, similar bills are already pending.
Okay.
This week, Louisiana passed this bill, becoming the first state to require this degree of transparency. 2 more states, Indiana and Virginia, set up a commission to study best way to implement this type of transparency. So I believe the trend is irreversible.
Okay, so you think that you've got the support behind you here, looking to move it through the Rhode Island State House. Anything else you want folks to know, Alex, while we have you here about this legislation to, again, have contractors be able to prove the hours worked, were the hours worked, to be able to get this state and federal funding?
Well, first of all, I need to point out that legislation is not company-specific or vendor-specific. We do provide a solution, a compliance solution. Shall the state require such transparency? But we're not the only company providing this type of solution. And it's not exactly a totally new requirement. If contractor supplies an equipment or furniture or anything tangible, there is absolute expectation of them keeping a proper accounting and proper record keeping at their own expense and being able to provide it to state auditors. Professional services have been the only exception, and for the sole reason of no tool existing which would make such verification possible. Now such tools exist, and we believe that keep paying contractors on the owner system is no longer justifiable, because while many contractors are honest, there are some which take advantage and drop the state blind.
Well, as we address fiscal issues here up at the State House, an interesting piece of legislation to, again, potentially be able to save the state money. Alex Connican, thank you so much for joining us today.
It was a great pleasure. Thank you very much.
We'll walk around and we'll be right back here with our next guest live from the Rhode Island State House.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Rhode Island State House for GoLocal Live. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. I'd like to welcome my next guest, Representative Scott Slater. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you for having me on today.
Well, I wanted to have you on to give folks an update because you've been a strong proponent of marijuana legalization here in the state. And as we saw, there was a study commission this year to look at the issue, address the issue. As we know, we're in the waning days of the 2018 session. All eyes are on Massachusetts. Lessons are being learned from other states around the country. Let's start with the study commission. Where do things stand right now? What do you think's been learned? And then we'll talk about moving forward.
So, unfortunately, the study commission, they met, I believe, several times, and they've extended the date of the study commission into next year. So that's not a good sign because of the fact that I don't think we're going to have anything done this year on recreational cannabis, you know?
So with the commission being extended into next year, does next year look like it would be a reach for any potential findings and then legislation?
Yeah, so I really do feel good about next year. I mean, it's not good to always say next year, but I feel much stronger next year because of the fact that the pressure that's going to be put on our medical program, because of the fact that you have recreational cannabis in Massachusetts and retail in Massachusetts is going to be up in July. and even the mayor of Attleboro has said kind of excited about the opportunities, the revenue that will be coming in. And you'll be seeing a lot of stores probably pop up along the border, which would have a negative effect, I believe, not only on our medical program, but we'd be losing a lot of tax revenue.
And so, the study commission was put in place, especially by leaders who said, let's take a prudent approach. Let's see other states that have legalized already. I mean, have there been lessons learned from Colorado, Washington, other states?
I think we've had lessons learned, and as you know, I've been supporting recreational cannabis for a number of years. I put this law in, it's probably like the 4th year, and I didn't participate so much in the study commission because I was kind of against it. I don't think we need to study it any further. I think we've studied the issue enough, and we could probably borrow Massachusetts' report and save ourselves time. So I'm in favor of moving forward. I think some of the changes you see that have been proposed in the budget this year with cultivators around the medical program, I think the reason for that is we have more than enough capacity to support a recreational program, and that's what we should have done from the beginning.
So Massachusetts going online in July.
Yeah.
The potential to look at it here in Rhode Island in 2019. I mean, ostensibly, how soon could something happen here? If legislation were to be approved next year, could we see it July 1st, 2019?
I think it could be early in the session.
Okay.
Just because we have the infrastructure here, and I've been saying this for a number of years. Through the medical program, before they made changes, we had caregivers, we had co-ops. Those since been kind of eliminated. Now we move to a system of cultivators. But all these folks, you have the supply. There's just no real place to distribute it.
And so what do you think is going to happen come July? I mean, no one has that sort of crystal ball, but a lot of Rhode Islanders who are proponents of legalized marijuana going over to Massachusetts. Are you really keeping a close eye on those tax dollars?
I am. I am. And I think you're going to see a lot of Rhode Islanders crossing the border and going into Massachusetts. And so Massachusetts is going to have a full recreational program. They also have, I think they're going to be putting up like cafes and other places where you can socially use. And I think it's really going to be a boon to Massachusetts economy. And it's something I've been pushing for here. Rhode Island, we can still do it, but we're going to lose some of that first mover effect, some of the revenue and the testing facilities. And outside of just recreational use of marijuana, states that have legalization, they see a drop in opioid abuse. They see a drop in opioid deaths. And then it's just a safer alternative for folks. And there's so many other industries that are popping up around cannabis.
And so talk with us also a little bit about the legislation. Is there money earmarked to address if there are potential health issues that need to be looked at or studied or treated? Because that's what a lot of folks are saying. You're going to have folks going to Massachusetts, folks are already using already, but then the state isn't getting those tax resources to be able to put towards those programs.
So in my law last year that I put in for the recreational cannabis, about 40% of the revenue would have been going to substance abuse treatment, not just for marijuana, but for other substances. And I think that would have been a huge help moving people away from addiction and into recovery. So that revenue now will stay in the black market, or it'll be going across the border. And it's just a much safer system to have a recreational system because it's tested and and it's kept out of the hands of kids. Because as you see with cigarettes, people don't want to lose their license by selling to children and minors. So someone with a retail license is much more cautious than someone on the street. Well,
we're going to continue to keep an eye on what takes place in Massachusetts, and we're certainly going to keep an eye on what happens here at the Rhode Island State House in 2019. Representative Scott Slater, I appreciate your time. I understand that there is a picture being taken very shortly, all of the House of Representatives. So we're going to sign off here at the Rhode Island State House. We'll be back downtown in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center at 4. We look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.